Well, hello there, you beautiful, beautiful people. How are you on this fabulous, fabulous Tuesday morning? So look, there is more and more documentation coming into the Idaho 4 case. And one in particular is stirring a lot of rumours across social media, on the likes of YouTube, on the likes of Twitter, and it's getting comments from the likes of Jennifer Coffin Dodger, who have stated that these documents are a positive thing for the prosecution. And look, you know me, I don't always agree with Jennifer Coffin Dodger. In fact, I hardly ever agree with Jennifer Coffin Dodger. But look, I have to say that in this instance, I do have to agree. And I'll tell you for why. But before I do, just remember, this is video 2 of 2. So if you've missed the first one, if you've not seen any and this is your first one, after this video, go back and check that other one out, because it's a shocker. It's a shocker. So yeah, so what it seems to be is that there is going to be there's some more evidence, potential evidence in this case. And it's being hidden. And don't get me started with yet another thing being hidden. I've never known a case where so much is being hidden from the public. I genuinely don't. I genuinely don't. But it's got my cogs turning. And you know me, I'm an innocent until proven guilty guy. And, you know, and I believe that's what everybody should be like. And I believe that I struggle to understand 100% why Bryan Kohberger and the defence would want a gag order in place if they were indeed truly believing he was innocent. If Bryan's an innocent guy, then why would he want a gag order in place? And I've gone backwards and forwards with this, and I've had arguments for it, I've had arguments against it. We've seen Bryan Kohberger stand silent, and we've kind of toyed with the idea that, look, whatever he did, he'd be scrutinised upon, he would be looked at in terms of how he looked, what he said, what he did, every single thing. And we've seen it happen. But the reality is, my thought process was, the gag order doesn't stop that. It's going to continue, and he must have known that. And then I think to myself, well, perhaps he just doesn't. Perhaps he genuinely doesn't understand that the gag order could rarely make him look even worse. But anyway, I digress. With respect of this, it would look like there's a potential for evidence that is being hidden, and I have concluded that, look, I would imagine that what is happening here is that the defence is looking to do their own independent testing. It's something that we see here in the UK, it's something that we see in multiple cases where there has been evidence obtained by the prosecution, the stuff that initially got him collared in the first place, if you like, and they will send it away for their own independent testing. So they can compare results, they can make sure they match up, and if there's anything that they can challenge, they can indeed challenge it. Now, I have speculated as to whether this could be the sheath that was found. Maybe they have now got that back and they now want to send that for their own independent testing, perhaps away from where it was initially tested, so they have some control over it, to again compare the results. And I would say that that would be quite a sensible thing to do. But I'm also acutely aware that they could have indeed found evidence elsewhere. Now, we have a long time pondered whether they found DNA from the victims in his car or in his apartment during them searches. We saw that they'd found things with stains on them. We heard that they found some hairs. And look, even though we know, and we're not stupid, that you can cut yourself shaving and lay on your own pillow and put blood on your own pillow, and obviously I would imagine that if you went around this house, you would find hairs, so that's not uncommon. But what they were specifically looking for was a DNA link between the victims and the victim's home and Brian Kohberger in his home. And I wonder whether they have indeed got something, whether they have found something else. Because look, at the end of the day, the only thing at this stage that I feel would warrant from the defence's perspective in terms of a gag order is if there is other DNA found, say for argument's sake, in that car. Now, we have constantly said if there is DNA from them victims in the car or in his apartment, he be fucked. That's it. That is game over. There is not really any arguing of that at all. Not in my eyes. Not in my eyes. Unless they can prove some prior connection that would mean that these victims had a relationship with Brian and they frequented his car or they'd been to his apartment, he is screwed. He wouldn't be able to explain that. And I think if you pair that with the sheath, then it's game over. It is game over. And like I say, even though I am an advocate for innocent until proven guilty, I would then, even me personally, would find it incredibly hard to continue to support an innocent stance if that were the case. And that's all that the defence have. They have the fact that there isn't enough evidence out there in order for us as the public from outside the tent looking in to convict Brian. I know many have, but the reality is that all of you people who have already got him sort of convicted of the crime, you have done that prematurely. 100%. I'm not saying you're wrong in your conclusion, but what I am saying is if you are only basing your conclusion on what you're seeing now, you are shooting in the dark. You are taking a punt. And I believe that taking a punt on someone's life is a really, it's a dangerous position to take as society. And like I say, I'm not saying that you're wrong in what the outcome will be. What I'm saying is your methodology in how you've come to that conclusion is wrong, because there isn't enough evidence to convict him. And that then makes me think more about the purpose of the gag order. And I believe that there's a potential that indeed the purpose of the gag order is in place to protect the defence more than anybody from there being information put into the public that then means that there is no route of escape for Brian. Because all of the skepticism that there is purely based on lack of information. And again, yes, people have already convicted him. They've already got him lined up at the wall waiting for the bullet. But if they have found something that is nigh on impossible to explain away, then they're going to want to keep that hidden. Because they're going to want to see what they can do with it. Is there something that we can do with it? And I think there are certain elements of this case where if that evidence comes forward in a certain form, then there will be no escape. So in terms of what Jennifer Coffin Dodger has said, in terms of this new information being a positive thing for the prosecution, I do believe that that is highly likely in the event that there has been additional DNA found elsewhere. But again, we do have to consider that the defence are just now doing their own independent testing on the likes of the knife sheath. That is a possibility. But then my thought process there would be that why would you want that gagged? You know, why would you put a stipulation forward that you specifically wanted these elements to be hidden from public view? And again, I may be reading too much into it, but the only thing that makes sense to me is that there is something else. They have found something else, and it ain't looking good. like I say, I'm about fairness. I'm about fairness. I'm about saying what's right and putting stuff out in layman's terms. And even though, again, this is speculatory, I struggle to determine a reason as to why it would need to be hidden if it was something that we had already seen the process of that testing and seen that there was already arguments swirling around that, doubt, whatever. Let me know down below what you think. Do they have more? Have they found something? Because look, what I will say is another argument that we've always had is Bryan Kohberger, if he is indeed the guy who did this, and he did it in this short space of time, this small window, and I'm going to touch on the importance of the skew of time in another video, maybe do that tomorrow, because there has been a skew in time. But if he did it in this amount of time, then I would struggle hugely to say that he did this if they didn't find any DNA, say for argument's sake, in the car. And I have spoken to people who are indeed in the belief that Bryan Kohberger did do this crime and he did it on his own, and all the above things that have been said in support of that. But they have stated that if it was found that there was no DNA in his property and there was no DNA in his car, then that would get them to potentially change their mind. Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one.